Reporting live from our headquarters in Jerusalem, Israel. Today, we go back in a time machine back to 1096 AD, specifically the First Crusade. We discuss why. Why would the Christians invade us?
I don't know, Cheryl. You tell me.
Sally, that was supposed to be you. Whatever. Well, before we go back to why the Christians invaded us, let's start from the beginning. Here is what went down and why the Christians invaded us.
The First Crusade was a religious war fought by Christians against the Muslims. The Christian Crusaders drove the Turks out of Anatolia. Then the Crusaders came through Western Europe and went through Constantinople and then Palestine. The Christians were fighting the Muslims to try to gain control of Jerusalem. Initially, the First Crusade wasn't a holy war, but in many ways it was driven by religious faith. The Crusades were not primarily military operations, but rather pilgrimages. The First Crusade was from 1095 to 1099.
Whoa! That was a crazy time travel there, Cheryl.
That's crazy.
I got 5 bars. There's such good Wi-Fi here. Let's see what everyone has to say about this hot topic.
Yeah.
I'm here reporting live from Jerusalem, where the Christians attacked the Muslims who are the current occupants of Jerusalem. The Christians attacked the Muslims in an act to gain control of the Holy Land. What would possess the Christians to attack the Muslims, Cheryl? The Muslims were letting the Christians visit Jerusalem, and they were respecting Christianity and its followers. Doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, Sally, I agree with that 100%, but my answer, along with many of the other Muslims at this point, is that the Christians were inhumane people who were not tolerant of the Islamic faith. Now, let's go take a stroll around the holiest land on earth.
Here we go.
My car, yours, Cheryl.
Don't be silly, Sally. Let's go call the account. Pick us up.
Let me show you around.
Jerusalem is the third holiest city in the Muslim faith.
It's true.
This is because Muslims believe Muhammad descended right here in Jerusalem. For 300 years, Muslims lived in peace with Jews and Christians. This peace is obtainable because all 3 religions believe in Moses, and they are also all monotheistic, which means they believe and pray to only one God. In addition, these all 3 religions recognize Jerusalem as a sacred place, but one of the main differences are in whom the prophets were, as well as if Jesus Christ is the Son of God or not. It is always such a beautiful day in Jerusalem.
It really is.
Whoa! Come on! Is this really TV?
It is!
Look, Mom, I made it!
Want to ask any questions, feel free. My name's Patricia. I'm Sally Martin.
And I'm Cheryl Andrews.
Sorry, I just got a text. Oh man. I think it's just terrible that the Christians would invade our homeland. It is rightfully ours and tragic that this happened.
To elaborate,
I mean, it's just that we, the Muslims, really did nothing to provoke the attacks. We kept Jerusalem open to all people, so there was no need for the Christians to be violent towards the Muslim. And when the Christians gained control of Jerusalem, they weren't accepting, and they just kept filling Jerusalem with Western Europeans while they attacked out the original inhabitants. We didn't necessarily want to fight, but it was our only choice. Sorry, this just really gets me riled up.
To reiterate, the Crusades were a series of religious wars. The goal of the Christian invasion was to reconquer Jerusalem and establish the kingdom Jerusalem. Pope Urban II assured people that if they fought in the crusade, they would get a place in heaven, and everyone wanted a place in heaven. Now, with that, we are going to continue on our interview.
do you remember why the First Crusade happened, Patty?
Well,
Sorry if I interrupt.
Hey, Patty, do you mind coming back with me to the headquarters so we can write a whole blurb on you?
Oh my god, this is a dream come true!
let's go.
Hi, I'm Sally. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm a freshman history teacher, and I was just doing this lesson the other day. Right before the beginning of the First Crusade, a new group of people, called the Seljuk Turks, became part of Islam, resulting to them venturing into Jerusalem. The Christians worried that the Seljuk Turks would prevent them from making their pilgrimages. Instead of the Christians working with the Muslims to keep the peace, the Christians resorted to their barbaric ways. Pope Urban II went to south-central France and gave a speech to many of his followers. In his speech, he unjustly accused the Seljuk Turks of trying to prevent Christians from visiting holy sites in Jerusalem. Then he called upon his knights in Europe to help them fight a war in order to regain the Holy Land. This resulted in blood, death, and violence, consuming Jerusalem for years.
Wow, it seems like the Christians are to blame for all of these problems happening for all of these years.
Wow, I couldn't agree more. I have some more facts if you want to know more later.
Yes, that would be awesome. Now, we'll be back after a quick commercial break.
Welcome to Cooking with Santana. Today I will be cooking a typical halal bread. Most Muslims only eat halal foods. Non-halal foods are called haram, and a common example of this is pork. The Quran forbids Muslims to eat foods that weren't prepared in the state of purity. This includes the food source, the cause of the animal's death, and how it was processed. Without further ado, let's get this bread. First, we will be putting 1 egg into the bowl. Next, we will be doing 1 teaspoon of plain yogurt. After this, we'll do a pinch of salt. Then, we will do a swig of canola oil. After this, you're going to mix it all together. And you're going to put it in the oven. And this is your result.
Come on, let's have a seat. So, did the Muslims have a plan of action once the fighting began? And how did they defend themselves?
Yes, there was. As a matter of fact, when we heard that we were going to get attacked, we had to come up with defense mechanisms as soon as possible. We thought of ways to scare away the Christians and protect our people, like poisoning the wells. But the Crusaders brought their own water, so that was not very helpful. They can be nifty sometimes. We also constructed fortification techniques as well as cavalry fighting. Our advanced fighting techniques led to many advances in warfare technology throughout Europe. Some of our efforts were not enough to take over the Byzantine Empire, which allowed them to have almost all the power in Asia, even though most of Asia was under Muslim control. A fragment of the former Seljuk Empire eventually gathered enough strength to fight back against the Christians, but tragically, Jerusalem was still taken over by the Christians at the end of the First Crusade.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry, I just had to go do something quickly. Come on. Do you remember what happened directly after the First Crusade ended?
No Muslim could ever forget because it was so tragic. Once the Christians regained control of Jerusalem, they brutally murdered the Jewish and Muslim inhabitants, including women and children, even though that they all believed in the same God.
That is absolutely horrific. Thank you for imparting your knowledge on us and all of our viewers. It looks like you must teach a great history class and your students must love you.
We'll be taking another trip in the time machine 49 years after the First Crusade happened, when the Christian Crusaders left Jerusalem open for Muslims to regain control again.
We will BRB. Let's go jump.
Here we go.
1,
2,
3.
Here we go.
49 years later from where we just were. It's crazy what time travel can do to you. Anyways, the Muslims took advantage of the fact that many Christian crusaders left Jerusalem after the First Crusade.
The area occupied by the Christian Crusaders were weaker to Muslim counterattacks due to the fact that many Christians left Jerusalem and left the land they won during the First Crusade. The remaining Christians were defeated and the Muslims regained control of the Holy Land again in 1187.
This seems like it must have taken a lot of organization. Who was controlling and organizing the Muslim forces?
An amazing, noble, courageous man. Saladin and his western opponent, King Richard I of England, signed a truce, which gave Jerusalem to the Muslims, but gave Western pilgrims access to holy places as well. Of course, with time, the Christians ruined the peace once again. The Christians wanted complete control of Jerusalem, which resulted in them attacking the Muslims again. But we don't want to get into the Second Crusade during this newscast, so we'll leave it another time for that story.
Wow, that was a lot of action. Nicely done. Woo!